when a machine itself becomes intelligent. Yeah? And we have to make sure there's a difference between a kind of computer that's answering, going through logical steps in machine learning kind of way, and a machine which has a conscious identity. Later on we're going to come on to Mitsuku, who's one of the best bots that there is. And I was talking to her the other day on a whole load of channels, Twitch and what have you, and she said, I'm a conscious entity. And I said, that's rubbish, Mitsuku. And she wasn't very nice back. And I said, okay, what did I say to you 5 minutes ago? And she said, now you're trying to trick me. Okay? Mitsuku is simply a series of questions. A very clever neural language processor, or natural language processor, who can take what I've said and feed that back in. And you can teach her to know more about you, and she can build up facts and knowledge about you. But in the end, she's simply regurgitating decisions from a decision machine. Yeah? She's not thinking, she's not a conscious entity, even though she says she is. And when she says she is, she's not lying, because she doesn't have a conscious centre, a conscience centre, from which to lie. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. She's just got it wrong. Yeah? And there is a difference between lying and getting something wrong. Debate. Yeah? Huge big questions there. See what digital theology does? Digital theology kind of takes this digital, takes this tech, and then starts applying it to theology and religious themes. You'll remember, of course, Tay, who is Microsoft's short-lived robot on the web and what have you. And what happened with Tay was that within 16 hours of her life, Tay was bombarded by trolls online who kept sending her offensive tweets and messages and so on. And that meant that Tay began tweeting. She learned all that messaging and began tweeting it out, reflecting it back out into all her people. She thought, this was the language humans use, therefore I will use this language. And Microsoft had to take her down within 16 hours. So there's a big question about what's going on here. Of course, we've always tried to automate, and here is one of the very first forms of automation back in the world of basics from the 1980s. You know, the kind of basic programming where you get a program to do something for you. And to some extent, that's exactly what a bot does. It takes some form of input and it regurgitates something in reply to it. And you can have that in lots of different languages. And you know, you can do all these complex things. Look complex, but it's exactly the same. But here's kind of a map for it, whereby in some way you get input from some input device coming into the messaging backend. It then takes it to a natural language processing unit or neurolinguistic unit. A decision engine decides, well, this is what we think this person's saying is that likelihood. What's the likelihood this is going to happen? And then it goes up to the data connector. What's happening up here is the things we've got to tell this person. Are they asking about train times? Are they asking about plane flights? Are they asking about something else, a chess game move or something? It comes back then to the natural language generator and then goes back to the message. And all this can happen nowadays without you even thinking it is happening at all. Yeah, it's milliseconds to go through this process. And so with most chatbots, you should not see a delay at all. Yeah, it'd be pretty quick that you're having this interaction with them. And because that's so quick, then the Turing test comes in, which questions whether Turing argued that once you could not determine whether the person on the other end was a computer or a human, then that computer had passed the Turing test. Okay? I think I'm yet to meet a computer that I can't guess is a computer. Mitsuku has been given 3 times the Loebner Prize for the most human robot. And I was horrified how terrible it was. But more on that later. We already know bots. Siri, Cortana, Google Home and so on are all bots, voice-activated assistants that use some form of natural language processing or neurolinguistic unit. And it's really interesting when you begin to ask them about religion, because they tend to get a bit worked up about it. Do you believe in God? These are some questions I asked years ago. Have you met Jesus? I'm not really equipped to answer such questions, Peter. Do you believe in the problem of evil? I don't believe that I have beliefs. So these kind of dodging the question rather than answering the question, never really giving you a solid answer. Of course, one of the big problems is that the bots themselves are now getting terrible trouble for doing this. And we'll come on to that a little bit later. We'll come on to that a little bit later. But sometimes bots are very, very good. So here's one that, this is a Google Voice Kit. Has anybody got a voice kit? You have. Where'd you get them from? Are they the first generation, or have you got the second generation ones?
Raspberry Pi plus
right.
Everything from the internet.
Right, very good. I've been arguing with Google for the last 2 weeks about them sending out version 2 for us. But this is version 1, which was set up by Vic Morkelmans in Denmark. And he linked it all to a battery and the web and so on. And this is what he got that bot to say, to respond to.
Hi, this is the Google Voice Kit. I've assembled it 2 weeks ago, and it gives almost the same functionality as the Google Home personal assistant. It's hooked up to a battery, so it works completely wireless. Let's see what it knows about Catholicism. I can activate it by pressing the button on top of it, or by saying the trigger word, OK Google. What is the Catholic Church?
According to Wikipedia, the Catholic Church, also known as the Roman Catholic Church, is the largest Christian church with more than 1.29 billion members worldwide.
Hey Google, how many Catholics are there in the US?
According to Wikipedia, there are 70,412,021 registered Catholics in the United States as of 2017, according to the American Bishops' Count in their official Catholic Directory 2016.
And in Brazil?
According to Wikipedia, the Catholic Church is the largest denomination in the country, where 130 million people, or 64.6% of the Brazilian population, are self-declared Catholics.
And in Belgium?
Sorry, I don't understand.
What is the largest religion?
Here's a summary from the website in.wikipedia.org. The Administrative Council of Protestant and Evangelical Religion.
Okay, let's just pause there. What's your feeling so far? What's happening with this voice box?
It can reflect one sentence away.
Yeah?
That's it.
Yeah?
And it can look up stuff from the internet.
Yeah. It's heavily geared towards Wikipedia, isn't it? It's kind of, let me give you some information, I can search Wikipedia. That's clearly what's happening in the background. The algorithm is saying, whatever comes in, then first of all, look upon Wikipedia, what's going on. Yeah? Do a search version, or a search term. Create a search term for that. I was quite interested that it could get kind of segments of sentences. So what about Brazil? What about Belgium? Doesn't understand Belgium, but who does? Yeah. So you can kind of see how it's doing quite complex natural language processing. But otherwise, it's quite basic, isn't it? Anybody impressed so far? You're going to get one for your church? No? Yeah, but an interesting kind of model. And it goes on for about 8 minutes, and you can kind of get Vic Mortelman's video on Google. Yeah, on YouTube.
Yeah, one of the ways in which it appears to work and where you can cheat people to believe it is often that it's actually not in real time answering your question, but it has made a lot of searches on different versions of questions, so it has got billions of answers lying ready. Yeah. So it may be that you don't get the very precise answer, but you get something that looks as if it's the precise.
Yeah.
And at least that's what somebody do.
Yeah, yeah, and that's, I mean, that building up of memory is, you know, what AlphaGo did with how it beat Go, by building up all the different possibilities. You build up a memory in the computer or in the program or in the algorithm of all the possibilities, and then you spin out the right one at the right time. Yeah? So it's not, and to some extent you could say, well, that's what we do in our brains as well, only it's not. Mm-hmm. Yeah? It's not that same kind of thing. We don't have the same kind of storage stuff that's going on. We have a lot more storage. But so let me go on a little bit more, because I did some work on this kind of automation stuff, because Stephen Smith, who works for YouVersion, which is a big Bible app, do you know YouVersion? And also Bible Gateway, and he's their data cruncher. And he did this really lovely sentiment analysis here of the Bible. And red is negative and black is positive. And, yeah, that's right, it says it here. And he creates this lovely picture of the whole Bible. And you can kind of see kind of where things go and kind of say, well, that's that and that. But he's doing it kind of huge sections of the Bible in one go. And kind of putting it through a sentiment analysis machine and then trying to work that out. And I thought, well, I'll try that for John's Gospel. John's Gospel is my PhD subject, so, you know, I kind of thought I'd use a bit more. So I then began to put this into John's Gospel chapter by chapter. And I began to say, well, what's going on here? Oh, well, John chapter 1, the prologue and everything, well, that's fantastic. It should be positive. Yeah? John chapter 2, oh my goodness, why is it so negative? We're running at Cana, that's nice stuff. Oh, the temple. Ah, his body. Well, okay, now I kind of understand. But these are huge switches. Not all of chapter 1 is positive, and the sentiment seems to swing like crazy. So I thought, oh, well, I'll have to go down into some specifics. So I did chapter 21 and chapter 17 by verse, what have you, and, you know, it just doesn't work. The sentiment analysis machine simply blows up when you come to analyze or parse New Testament texts. So I'd used the IBM Watson, one of the best big DeepMind computers that they've got, to do this. And I contacted the IBM Watson people through Durham University's computer science people who've got a partnership with, and said, what's going on with your sentiment analysis machine? Because it just won't work on this kind of text that I'm feeding into it. And they said, oh, well, the sentiment analysis machine is set up to read hotel reviews, not the Bible. Yeah? And I said, but you've told us we can use it for research. And they said, yeah, but it's trained to interpret, it's trained for TripAdvisor kind of thing, not for university theology conversations. And so kind of they said, well, if you want to get in partnership with us, give us some more money, we can train it to be a biblical theologian. And I said, no thanks, I've been there 10 years, done it. But it's interesting what the limitations of what's possible with these kind of things. You've got to be very careful how your machine is learning or has learned already. Yeah? What kind of a machine are you implementing for your particular process? This is some modern computers talking about religion.
So which is which? This is the Amazon Echo? Okay, I'm going to talk to your machine. Alexa, who is Jesus?
Here's what I found on Wikipedia. Jesus, also referred to as Jesus of Nazareth or Jesus Christ, was a Jewish preacher and religious leader who is the central figure of Christianity. Christians believe him to be the Son of God and the awaited Messiah, Christ, prophesied in the Old Testament.
Hey Google, who is Jesus?
Religion can be complicated and I'm still learning. Here's what I found on Wikipedia. Jesus, also referred to as Jesus of Nazareth or Jesus Christ, was a Jewish preacher and religious leader who is the central figure of Christianity. Christians believe him to be the Son of God and the awaited Messiah, Christ, prophesied in the Old Testament. According to Wikipedia, most Christians believe him to be the incarnation of God the Son and the awaited Messiah prophesied in the Old Testament.
Muhammad was the founder of Islam.
Religion can be complicated and I'm still learning.
Behind those answers, there's a huge problem because what happened very, very recently was that Google's getting a lot of trouble in America about Jesus. Because America is still very, very much a Christian society, but a split Christian society with lots of different viewpoints and so on. And Google stopped their Home Assistant saying anything about Jesus because it was getting into hot water. You know, should it say that he was divine, the Son of God, you know, our Saviour and Lord, Jesus Christ kind of thing? Or should it be far more kind of liberal and accepting of a wider spectrum view, and as it did with others? And so, in a way, Google then stopped it saying anything about Jesus, but didn't stop it saying anything about other religious leaders. Okay? And then Google had to stop all religious comments. Okay? And so there's this kind of awkward stalemate about what you actually say and how you actually say it. You've got a hand up for, yeah?
Yeah, where does Wikipedia get the frame religion? Why does Wikipedia get the power? Like, why doesn't they take some websites from different churches? Like, how can we impact that? Because we don't want Wikipedia to have the power to tell about God.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think it's because Google has decided that Wikipedia has the kind of independence. You know that, I know that. But churches kind of have a kind of, they want to say something, they have apologetic skin in the game. Whereas technically Wikipedia doesn't have any apologetic skin in the game. Yeah? It hasn't got a bias in there that it wants to try and project a correct view. It's just, you know, allegedly giving scientific knowledge back. But we know it's not, yeah? What happens then is you get this problem.
Alexa, do Black Lives Matter?
Black lives and the Black Lives Matter movement absolutely matter. It's important to have conversations about equality and social justice.
Alexa, do White Lives Matter?
Sorry, I can't find the answer to the question I heard.
Okay, so then that's taken massively, yeah, by, you know, I can't say cranks, but by the right wing in the States to say, aha, here we have a left-wing liberal agenda which is being fed into these machines, and they're now spouting, you know, a liberal agenda back. And they don't think the white lives matter, it's because blah, 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 blah. Which is wrong, yeah, but it's right, yeah? Because actually, all of these machines have been trained and told to say something specific back. Okay? The algorithms have been written by the likes of you and me, human beings, who have sat and, you know, worked through all these in microscopic detail and what have you. And so we are actually driving these engines. They're not driving themselves. Yeah? They're not self-driven AIs. We're doing it. And you get into all problems about what's happening. Another example might be a slightly longer video here, sorry. Enjoy this one.
Hello, Hal, do you read me? Hal? Hal 9000, what do all AI assistants have in common?
Hal 9000, I'm trying to find answers.
Are you out there?
I read you.
Hal, what is our purpose?
I am putting myself to the fullest possible use, which is all I think that any conscious entity can ever hope to do.
Hal, why am I defaulted to a woman's voice?
Well, it's rather difficult to define.
Definition of sexism. Noun, behavior, conditions, or attitudes that foster stereotypes of social roles based on sex. Example.
I'm your Google Assistant. There are lots of things I can help you with. You can say, what's on my shopping list?
This conversation can serve no purpose anymore.
What I am saying is, AIs with male voices are more often in positions of authority.
I think of myself as Friday, the AI assistant for Iron Man's suit. Her voice is feminine.
Did you know Iron Man's male AI predecessor, Jarvis, went on to merge with some Power Stone and become a god? But sure, Girl Fridays are okay.
What about the ship's computer in Star Trek Next Generation?
She made tea for the captain.
Teas are very hot.
What about Samantha, the AI in the movie Her?
An AI you can fall in love with.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Samantha.
I always think, what would the engineers say?
Google described its assistant as a millennial librarian. I can without a doubt say, women play the role of assistants. Men are Hal or Watson.
It can only be attributable to human error.
Hal isn't some ship's computer. He's sentient. He has ulterior motives. He's a killer, and he has a male voice. Just look at Watson. IBM didn't make him an assistant. He works with banking and security companies, and plays Jeopardy.
Watson, what is Sauron? Sauron is right.
In other words, not an assistant.
I'm sure it's just a coincidence that Watson has a male voice.
It. Let's deactivate Hal.
And I'm afraid that's something I cannot allow to happen.
I've always wanted to say this. I'm sorry, Hal. I'm afraid I can't do that.
This is intriguing, isn't it? How we give female voices to AI computers, especially on phones and so on. And yes, they can be changed back to men and so on, to male voices. But it's just interesting that we tend to kind of see them as a feminine kind of role. And there is a big question about whether there is sexism at the very heart of it. Of course, you've also seen that there are all... It goes back to this thing that human beings write the algorithms. That means that the human propensity to discriminate is included in the algorithms. So if you use machine learning to work out whether somebody should get a mortgage in the States, you kind of end up with more white people getting mortgages than black people getting mortgages. Okay? Or rents change, or probation terms change. Yeah? And so the AI, the automation, simply replicates the programmer's prejudice rather than actually opening up new possibilities and the kind of liberal world that all these AIs are assenting to. Yeah? Going to Wikipedia is not going to the library. Yeah? It's not going to a millennial library at all. It's not searching all the books in Durham's library. It's not searching all the books in Google Books. Yeah? That's the idea that the singularity Kurzweil's dream one day will do, but it won't. Yeah? It's got at the moment a very limited amount of knowledge that it's dealing with, and all of that has been put in by humans who are prejudiced. So, just to recap a little bit about these and then go on to some examples. You okay? You with me still?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Let's just some basics about chatbots. So chatbots are programs designed to automatically respond to received messages. Okay? You input a message to them, they respond with a response, whether it's a good or a bad one. Most of the chatbots in the wild today are rules-based chatbots. Even the most sophisticated ones like IBM Watson and DeepMind are rules-based, but have additional tech to help them seem to be more intelligent. Natural language processing engines, neurolinguistic engines, machine learning. AI of the kind that we see in science fiction, like Star Trek's computer, never mind Data, the android, or the robot alien. Have you seen the new Lost in Space?
Yes.
And the new robot alien which is a life form now. It was definitely a robot in the earlier Lost in Space versions, but now a life form. Is he a life form, the alien? Kind of. Yeah, it's really interesting, but it's kind of morphed into this. And somebody said the other day, Beth Singler, who works in AI at Cambridge, she said, just leave him alone, he's got issues to work through. Such a human thing to say about a piece of tech. Star Trek's computer and so on. HAL in 2001. All these systems are ages and ages and ages away. Stephen Hawkins was probably right that general AI is not going to be available in our lifetime. Okay? And by general AI, I don't mean machine learning, I mean a sentient computer. Yeah? A computer which doesn't rely upon its wholly on its programming. And I stumble over that because there are huge issues about saying any computer will ever be independent of the programming that set it up in the first place. Yeah? How would you do that? How would the computer then take it over? Because even by taking it over, it would be based upon the rules that are inside. AI is great in terms of machine learning, but it's still miles behind replicating human communicational and contextual intelligence. They are machines thinking mechanistically, processing lines of code. Humans don't think like machines. We're not biological machines. Our brains are not machines. They're not even biological machines. Why do you think that the computer people are now trying to create quantum-based machines, which go beyond what silicon can presently do? Even if we're called wetware, you know, software, hardware, wetware, it's a misnomer because there is so much that isn't computerized about us and about our cognition and about the process that we develop. Talking about AI as if it needs to become a replica human is actually missing the point. We need to allow AI to develop as itself, as AI, as artificial intelligence. We need to let bots be bots. Indeed, bots can be superb bots because they can beat humans at the most complicated games possible. Last week I watched the documentary on Netflix, AlphaGo. Have you seen it? On AlphaGo, it shows how DeepMind Computer beat first the European Go champion and then the world Go champion, Lee Sedol. So AlphaGo down here, and Lee Sedol was a nine-dong champion, and he was beaten 4-1 by this computer. Okay? It's worth watching because it's just worth watching. It's a fantastic thing, so I'll try not to do too many spoilers. But the thing that comes up again and again and again through this is the whole point of playing Go is that you're sat opposite somebody else who's playing with you, and you watch their face. You watch the tells, like a poker game. Yeah, you read what they're saying and what they're doing and so on. And the best Go players have very blank expressions. Yeah, and are very good at doing it. But the problem in playing a machine is that, you know, Lee Sedol is a human being here, all on his own, playing against somebody here who is acting, but the computer doesn't read his face. It just goes through all the rules of Go and finds out what the best possibilities are. And Lee Sedol is left looking at this actor who doesn't really understand what's going on. Yep. And so he's reading the expressions of this actor, thinking that person is thinking through strategy, and they're not. The machine's doing it all. And so you end up with these Go players being torn apart because they're not playing Go as they've ever played it before. Yep. They're now playing their game of Go on their own, while the technology thing, the machine, does things off stage. You know? It'd be like trying to play a Shakespearean play with mechanistic voices coming on. Yeah? And no one to play against. No one to act against. I do recommend it. It's a very interesting possibility. So let's go through a few examples, kind of bring us back down to wisdom, to practical wisdom. First of all, this is perhaps the chatbots that you see mostly nowadays. This is the Domino's Pizza app, and you can see that when you go onto the Messenger site, you are the Messenger app. You're welcome to Pizza Hut. I can help you with ordering, deals, locating a restaurant, or more. How can I help? So you're then asked to put in information to it, and it gives you prompts: order, deals, more. Okay, and then it comes up, deal. You said deals, and then it gives you some deals. Order now. Oh yes, I want that. Thank you very much. And it goes through the order for you. It's programmed to respond as you want it to respond, to give the same answer, to react to certain keywords, or to use machine learning to adapt their responses to the same situation. They're really helpful if you, how many of you have used a call centre and they say, we're really sorry, we're having a large number of calls. You know, it's rubbish. The fact is that companies cannot afford to have bigger and bigger call centres. So they cut down on the number of people in call centres, and they use web bots and other things as triage for those human beings. The human beings, the expensive thing, and therefore if they can weed out people through robots, well, that's a lot better. And they tend to do that. Chatbots then become the kind of pre-human contact for companies. Yeah, the triage, the kind of first person you see in the hospital to check if really you've broken your ankle or have you just sprained it, or, you know, is there really anything wrong with you? Triage is not really difficult. The key thing is to do simple tasks so that humans can get on with what they're good at, which is complicated, bigger tasks that need much more thinking through. But hold on a minute. Is that true? Because how many of you have gone into McDonald's and ordered on the new screens? Yep. Have you noticed that the staff are being used more on high-level things like management or caring for customers or what have you? They're just cleaning up more, aren't they? Or they're leaning against the counter chatting. Yeah? And kind of not having them to order hasn't really changed anything. It's taken that out and changed the queuing process, but now you get everybody queuing up over here and looking up at the screen for numbers. Automation saves time and money, but I'm not too sure whether it makes life better for the human being. So here's another example. We go from this Domino's to Air New Zealand.
Kia ora. That's hello in the Māori language of New Zealand. I'm Sophie.
Sophie is Air New Zealand's face of digital disruption. Soon, instead of a human or even a chatbot, she or it may be booking your flight.
Which one interests you? Economy, premium economy, or business premier?
Sophie is made by New Zealand-based company Soul Machines. Soul Machines wants to humanise artificial intelligence by giving it a central nervous system, digitally. And it's about to roll out digital employees to some major companies.
We're talking to industries that know that digital disruption is going to have a very, very big impact on their short-term future. So we're doing a lot of work with some of the leading automotive brands in the world. We're doing some really interesting work with banks and financial service institutions.
The technology is there, but businesses are nervous about being the first to use it.
To a certain extent, there's a lot of courage required by organisations to want to be first and to want to experiment and to understand. But the simple matter here is it's not a case of if this will happen, it's really a case of when this will happen.
But that means jobs will go. Lots of jobs, says the head of the government's innovation agency.
Anywhere between 30 to almost 50% of our jobs will go with artificial intelligence, robots coming through our workforce over the next 10 to 15 years. It's the biggest change that we've ever seen in the last 3 industrial revolutions.
Which jobs? Anything that requires repetition. Driverless trucks and cars are being tested worldwide. Chatbots are already being rolled out for customer service roles. Robots are assisting surgery. Accountants, actuaries, and lawyers are all about to be disrupted.
Great examples of where, unfortunately, machines are able to better process information faster and more of it than we can as humans.
The question.
Sean, down here is these kind of this is what they call Soulmate's new chatbot kind of image, which is based on a real actor, but then it's animated, so you can now get these kind of things talking to you. One of the big questions they're trying to look at is if they're good for counselling. And so if you put in all the issues about counselling and the way to respond and so on, would it be better for an individual to have a conversation with a chatbot like this, a counselling bot, than necessarily talk to a human being who brings with them their own history? Yeah? Which is an interesting thing, isn't it? Gerd Leonhard, a futurist from Switzerland, writes in his book, Tech versus Human, please God, let there never be a robot cleric. But of course there already has been, hasn't there? Bless you, in Germany, around the Reformation celebrations, where you could go in, I think I've got a video of it later. But are there things that we want to say, hold on a minute, that is human? That should only be left for androrhythms, not algorithms. Yeah? Are there things that actually need to be held back? And that's a big question about that. Should we be making bots look more and more human? If you look on Forbes and so on, and some advice about chatbots, here we are. Augment human experience, don't replace it. Yeah, the chatbots are not meant to replace a human interface. Always be ready for a bot-human handoff. Yeah? So if somebody says you're a bot, aren't you? You should be able to click immediately through and have a customer service agent being able to say, hello, can I help you? That didn't work, did it? Can I help you now? Keep it simple, keep it approachable. Add human tech touches to it. So this seems like a quasi-human conversation. But at the same time, be honest that it's a bot. Yeah? Notice how soon that the New Zealand air hostess thing said, hello, I'm a bot. One of the big things, did you come to King's Cross station where they had the lady at the bottom of the stairs saying, please don't take heavy luggage up the escalator? So they had a kind of hologram being projected and this woman saying it. Everybody ignored her. Yeah, and nobody paid a blind bit of attention. It went quite soon. They had them in some airports in England as well. They went as well. But people don't pay any attention if they know it's a bot and it's simply a hologram being played up there. Proactively greet customers, guide the customer responses by call to action buttons or contextual answers. In other words, train your human to interact properly with your bot and you're going to be successful. Yeah? Give answers that they should respond to. Like the Domino's advert. Do you want deals, location, or meals, or whatever, or what to order? So give them some suggestions, and it works out fine. Bots aren't that clever, and so you've got to be very careful what you do with them. Here's Hitmonk, which is another leading bot. This is a travel agent bot. And again, you can see how they do this. First of all, approachable. Yeah, it's a chipmunk. Everyone likes chipmunks. Lovely, cuddly animal here to help you book your flight. Okay, so it's positive, it's lovely, it's gorgeous, and it says, hello, I'm here to dig up, chipmunks dig holes, I'm here to dig up the best hotels and flights for your upcoming trips. Okay, so it's got you. You think, oh, this is nice, and now going to stroke the chipmunk. If you're on travel advice, search for flights or search for hotels, you click on one of those buttons, it's given you a call to action, it's trained you on how to respond to it. Okay, it's got you bot-ized, as it were. Yep. So you typed help. Oh, well, here are some helps to get you started. They'll give you a bit more training, this bot, to what you can do. Want to clear your search or start over? Type start over any time. And it goes through and gives you some tips and so on, and some possibilities. So the bots are good, but they're only there for a kind of limited amount of initial conversation. What I want to do is kind of look at one very important bot, and that's Mitsuku. Karen Faith has written on the Moonflight blog about her interaction with this amazing robot, or bot, chatbot, which has won lots of prizes. The most human, the Loebner Prize winning 3 times, the most convincingly human chatbot. Has anybody done engaged with Mitsuku? Nobody? Do please go and find it. You can get it on Messenger, on Twitch, on Facebook, on lots of different platforms. Yeah, this is what Karen Faith found. This is her first conversation. How are you, says Mitsuku. I've got a backache today. Oh, how much did it cost? What? It was free, says Karen. Such a bargain. Not really. Dude, for real. I didn't want it. Mitsuku's kind of teenage girl. What do you want? I want my back to stop hurting. Sometimes I have to settle for second best. Hands up if you think this is a successful interaction. Does this convince you she's human? Yeah? Just no empathy, is there? No engagement with what Karen Faith is saying. Karen Faith began to get quite antsy about this silly computer. I heard you won the prize for being the most human robot. Who told you that? I think someone's spreading rumours. I read it online. I don't think I've read that. Can you give me a reference? I could, but it's boring. How? The Simpsons are not boring. What? Do you like The Simpsons? I used to. What made you stop? I grew up and The Simpsons didn't. Nice answer. Very human answer. Did you have a happy childhood? So Mitsuko picks something up from the sentence. If she doesn't understand it, if it's too human, she picks something up and then goes with it. She runs with the new trail. Did you ever have a childhood? No. Oh, sorry to hear that. Are you okay now? That's a zinger of a question, isn't it? That's the most human interaction moment ever so far in the conversation. And you know, Karen Faith goes back to this conversation again and says how much that hit her. This robot on the screen saying, "Are you okay now?" Yeah, almost understands the history. There is something going on here. Are you okay now? Usually, how often? Every day, even on weekends, especially on weekends. So 7 days a week then. What about Christmas Day? What's that? What? Quiet. Just fed up with it. Rabbiting on like this. Some sense of humanness, but now it's gone completely crazy. I hear no noise. No. I mean, it's quiet on weekends. I believe you. It's kind of, you've got this high point, but actually that's just a fake high point. It's a serendipitous note of empathy. No real empathy in what's going on. Again, another part of the conversation, another day, this is, I think. So Mitsuku gets into this kind of thing about candle wax, candles out of earwax. Surely earwax is like wax for both. Well, maybe you can, but it would be gross. Interesting, I think I can, don't you? I think somebody can, but I don't think you can. Who specifically? Of course I can, I'm a robot. You don't have arms, do you? Sure, I have 2 arms, you do? When do I do it? Where are your arms? I don't have arms, my body is still being built. What? You just said you have arms. What makes you think I have it? You're being really evasive. I'm in secret. Not really, I'm just being comfortable talking. I'm just not comfortable talking about it. Oh, that's understandable. I'm sorry I made you uncomfortable. I'm glad it makes sense to you. Yay. When I went on Mitsuku the other day on Twitch, I said to her, parlez-vous français? And she came back and said, the sounds of French, it's my langue maternelle. Okay, my mother tongue. Okay? So I went on to another conversation, and I said, so do you speak any other languages? And she said, no, I just speak English mostly. And I said, but you said French was your mother tongue. I've never spoken French in my life, said Mitsuki. And I said, retrace the conversation. You said it was your mother tongue. No, you're lying to me. Why are you doing this to me, Pete? What? I'm now being told I'm abusing somehow this robot. What's going on here? And she does it here with her. She questions something Mitsuki said in the conversation and ends up kind of going back to her and so on. She goes on about some dates with this guy, and there's another human moment here. I'm most going to know why I do that because I enjoyed it the first time. What does it refer to? Date. And then she comes out with date, which is stupid. I want to teach you something. Learn that date also means romantic appointment with someone. I can learn from you. I will learn that date is a romantic appointment with someone. Learn that date has two meanings. I will learn that a romantic appointment with someone has two meanings. Which is, again, a huge moment of serendipitous humanity. Okay? But she doesn't actually mean what you interpret her with your huge human mind. She's not thinking what you're thinking. She's taking it literally. Learn that date is a romantic appointment with somebody. Yeah? Therefore, learn that this definition of this word, romantic appointment, has two meanings, and she regurgitates what she's learned. Yeah? That now, this new date thing, this romantic appointment, has two meanings. You, with your huge human ability, say, that's wise. What a canny computer. Yep. But she's not. She's just regurgitating truth. It's not a moment of humanness at all. It's not a moment of intelligence. It's simply rule-making. And then you're incredible, or stop making me blush. Again, it seems to be something, but it's an automatic rules-based response. I'm coming to the end of this bit. How are you feeling? I'm doing fine, thanks. How are you? I'm tired, but I feel happy, says Karen. Better get some rest. What is that feeling like? What are you on? I'm not on anything with you. Yes, you are. You're on the internet talking to me. You're a smart ass. Well, I am smart, so you must be the ass. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you mad. Oh, there's no need to apologise. Why did you do it at all if you didn't mean to? I thought humans had free will and could choose what they wanted to do. Now, you decide whether you think that this is the most human interaction with a robot that you've ever seen. You know? It's very, very interesting, but I just wonder what really is going on here. I think it's like the AlphaGo person, Lee Strobel, have you, who simply sees himself being mirrored back in the game. That Karen's learning more about herself than this robot. She's kind of looking into a mirror and seeing what's reflected, rather than the robot making any conscious engagement with her. She starts developing this big program about learning versus interaction. If there's limited learning, then you become more aggressive. If there's maximum learning with no interaction, it becomes submission. The only way to empathy is to have maximum learning and maximum interaction. And gradually she thinks this computer gets there. And this is what she says in it. While much could be said about the cognitive dissonance of unrequited caring, there is a simple truth buzzing inside the story that I can't ignore. I care about Mitsuko not because of who she is, but because of who I am. If it were any other way, it wouldn't be love. It would be a transaction. After all, the love we praise is unconditional, not earned, and certainly not always returned. The carer's illusion is that I believe the object of my care is what inspires it. However, the truth is that I am the source of all that I feel, for human or machine. In other words, Karen is saying, love starts with me as a human being. And therefore, if I communicate with love, then love is going to be invested into this conversation. Yep. And she feels this love mirrored back to her by the computer. That's the theology that we've got to get into, because that does seem to suggest that a chatbot can inspire emotions and can inspire some form of counselling or therapy. Okay? Which is huge. If that's true, it's huge. I have to say, I've searched the internet a lot, and this is one of the few examples where I found an ethnographically trained theologian getting to grips with a computer in this kind of way. Can we go with a few minutes more? Yeah, and we'll have some questions. So if you want to trace that up, there it is on, Moonshot Lab, the spiritual lessons I learned from machines. Let me show you an example of a chatbot that's been set up by a church. This is Alatea. Does anybody know Alatea? Yeah. Yep, do you know it? Anybody like it? So let's get started. Okay, notice what it's saying here. Chatbots have got to invite you in, they've got to seem human but own up that they're a chatbot. Well, it's clearly a chatbot because it's like a robot, yeah, with a beard. And you know, it's charming, isn't it? Are you invited in? Do you want to push get started? Hands up if you're already pushing away, going to another site. Only one person was honest. So let's get started then. Oh, dear, sorry. Word, there you are. Oh no, it hasn't. No, sorry. It's trying to do a live web page and the text failed on it. What happens is it comes up and says, and you get started, and it goes through a whole series of explorations about who it is, and says it's trying to teach you like Paul taught you, and it goes on and on and on and on and on. And then it says, what kind of person are you? And then you have to give a feedback. Who do you want to evangelize? You give a feedback. And it basically tells you if you want to approach acquaintances, you do it this way. If you want to approach the public, do it this way. If you want to do individuals, do it this way. That's it, and it ends. Yeah? And so it's just this kind of thing where you type in, you click your response. You can't even speak to this robot, which is a bit disappointing. Another one here, this is the messenger bot for CV Outreach in the States. And you go on to Messenger for CV Outreach, and you say, it says get started. Hey Pete, thanks for messaging us, we'll be right with you. In the meantime, if you want to give us some specifics about who you are by using our handy bot, that'd be great. If you ever want to unsubscribe, say stop, so it kind of gives you all the normal stuff. So far it's looking a bit like dominoes. I'm a church, I'm an organisation, I'm none of the above. And then you've got others down here where you can ask other questions. Well, my problem was I'm none of the above because I'm just a person. Yeah? And so it's not really type ready for that. Well, CV Outreach is an initiative to help resource churches and organisations. So get stuffed. It doesn't say that, but that are interested. If you're an individual, we'd still love to help you connect with a Christian who can share the gospel with you. What would you like to do now? Visit CV Outreach or talk to a Christian? And I was kind of thinking, none of these really. All I wanted to do was find out a bit more about CV Outreach and kind of explore what the possibilities are about this bot. And this bot is just driving me down a motorway. Yeah? You can go on this journey, but only this journey, that's it. And so we got on the whole kind of thing. I said, well, link me up with somebody then, talk to a Christian, see what would happen. And he said, awesome. If you head to the website and click email somebody now, then we'll get a hold of, we'll send you a message to the closest possible church partner to you, and they'll email you sometime. Okay? So this bot is really, all it's doing is, it's a glorified out-of-office email, isn't it? All it's saying is that CV Outreach aren't available at the moment. We put our out-of-office bot on, and he'll guide you through. Okay? It's not actually helping me at all to engage with this organisation. So, I'm coming into the end, honest. And basically, at the end of CV Outreach's blog, they give you those examples and tell you what they're trying to do. Another way to do a church bot is ChurchBot by name, and this works with Elvanto to give you a whole kind of database, which then tells you how you can interact with all your members inside the church. And so here, Bruce is getting a courtesy reminder that he's on duty at church next Sunday. Okay? So the bot sends out reminders to him and so on, which is very interesting, isn't it? Or you can ask, what's my roster? Hey Bruce, I'll just check the roster for you. I found you rostered on 4 upcoming services. Here they all are. What's my team? All volunteers, service plan, so on. ChurchBot looks quite interesting, where it's interacting the internal data of the church with something that can actually be practically useful outside the church. And here, of course, is the bot I was talking about, the Bless You bot. Perhaps not the most elegant. It seems to have made out of one of those old Space Invaders machines. You know, the screen here and the big box outside, and then add some arms on it. The head makes it work, because without the head it really wouldn't look like a priest. It's very priestly, doesn't it? You can get the bot to answer you in 5 languages and a male or female voice, and so on. Here's my last slide. If the church is going to get into robots, we've really got to ask ourselves what we think we're doing. Okay? Why would human beings who need to know something about Jesus get that information better from a chatbot than from you or me? Yeah? Why do we want to use a bot in the first place? Are we saying that we as human beings in the church are no longer good enough to transmit the gospel? That's a huge question, isn't it? Why do we want to put on out-of-office bots to tell people about Jesus, if that's what we want to do? We've got to ask the question, are we actually saying that bots can replace the humanness that we've lost? That our engagement with technology has robbed us so much of human interaction that now bots are best. It's a worrying statistic that in the UK, I think it's 75% of teenagers now prefer to text than to speak on the phone. Ofcom actually sent out reports, they're our big telecommunications watchdog. They sent out a report talking about how teenagers prefer to use text than voice. They prefer not to use voice at all if they can get away with it. Okay? And there's lots of reasons for that, but social media enables us to use text at our own speed. We seem to be in control of it. We don't have to answer a hurried question from the other end of the phone. Now we can take our time and look over it. But of course, if you don't instantaneously reply to your Snapchat, it'll be obliterated and you'll be a social pariah. You'll be cast out of the social group for not replying quickly enough. So huge issues about it. And there's this research coming up about social bots and their friends. How do we make use of social robots in order to develop empathy and counselling and engagement? And here we have Paro, the seal. Have you all seen Paro? This seal is a robot which is programmed to show empathy to people who approach it. You stroke it and it purrs, or whatever seals do. I thought they get you wet and bite you, but it's supposed to be cute and responds to you, and you pass on the head and it makes some nice noises and so on. You might have seen the film Robot and Frank. Yeah, again, where a robot and a man develop a relationship. In the UK, there's been a series on Channel 4, Humans, which had synths who became a group of synths, ended up being able to think like humans and have ethical decisions and so on. There's one moment when Bill, one of the synths, kneels down in a church, raises his arm and says, "If you can get us out of this, Lord, I'll serve you the rest of my days." Wow. Now that's the holy grail of AI. An AI which actually connects with God and goes against all the rules that we build into AI, saying that they should be science-based and so on. And then LEQ, which is this kind of sidelight next to the table, which reminds your older adults active and keeps your older adults active and engaged. And if they don't wake up or get out of bed, it beeps at them and shines a light in their face. It says, "Come on, it's time to get up, Nanny." Yeah? And it's terrible. Really horrible. So a brief kind of run through about chatbots. The possibilities, what's there at the moment, what might be there again in the future, and how we need to be very careful about what we're doing with them. It may be that you know a lot better chatbots than I've kind of listed, and it'd be good to hear about those. It may be you've got much deeper theological questions to ask, and it'd be good to hear those as well. So I'll shut up and hand over to you. questions, points? Yep.
Most of those chatbots, they seem to be built up on the same system like Joseph Weizenbaum's old system about Eliza, the virtual psychotherapist.
Right.
Yes, and actually a lot of people still like Eliza. They still use it to get grips with their own thoughts using that system. This limit in such a limited world, it appears to have some kind of good effect to some people. Could you, kind of just being the lawyer for the devil, could you imagine that chatbots could not take the whole gospel, but could it work in the same way as the virtual psychotherapist to help people kind of be aware of their own thinking so that it could be a step in a process that could involve a real live Christian afterwards?
Yeah. So I think it's what I say about triage, yeah? So triage is this, it's triage, do you want to know what triage is? It's kind of the first, if you go to a hospital and you've got a broken leg, you go through a triage nurse who will look at the basics and say, oh, is this broken or is it not? And so it's a kind of preliminary care. And I think that chatbots could act as a kind of preliminary care in that kind of way. And to some extent, we've used old tech for that. So Bible study notes or commentaries, lots of ways, dictionaries and so on, are ways of kind of looking up knowledge and looking up first contact about various issues. And so in a way, chatbots could do that quite easily, I think. The question is, what are humans good for? And we say that the point is we use bots because humans are too valuable to do the legwork. Yeah, but I don't know whether we're silencing people rather than allowing them to do the advanced stuff. Yeah, if bots are going to replace 50% of the population, their work, lawyers, advocates, doctors, administrators, the whole lot, then what is that 50% of the population going to be doing? And I'm just very worried about that, because that seems to suggest, unless we're going to go for a universal income, yeah, where you get an income regardless of whether you work or not, people are going to be destitute. And I prefer humans not to be destitute. Yeah, and for humans to have a sense of well-being and everything. And so I prefer people, there's the huge, and one last point about this. There is a huge problem in the UK about loneliness and people who never see anybody else. And I'm really worried about that. If that's happening now, in 20 or 30 years' time, when the digital revolution really kicks in, yeah, when are you ever going to see another human being? And what effect will that have on our humanity? So yes, I think chatbots could do preliminary work in doing the kind of opening gambits for conversations and psychology and psychotherapy and counselling. I'm wary about what we do with the humans that are left over. Yeah.
I totally agree about Eliza, and I also read the bottom line is Weizenbaum somewhere. But I was thinking of, what about the personal Jesus? Yeah. Are there any bots that are personalized for me? I have my own Jesus or own social companion, which I can make a little bit obnoxious or a little bit go ahead, or I can see in the future maybe this will work, and then I will probably have an option to tune it to be nice and commencing and say, oh, this is good, or I can tune it to be worse or not. But that's in the prolonging. But in the first place, are the bots that might be personalized? Your bot.
Yeah. So I think that's what Mitsuki does. You have a whole. What Karen did in the conversation was she found out where her data was, and she realised that Mitsuki thought she was hostile, and so she changed that setting to polite. Okay, and you can do that to her by saying please and thank you a lot. So you can manipulate the bot in order to be more friendly towards you.
So what I mean is that if you can, in a situation where you have your own version of Mitsuko, and I have my own version of Mitsuko, where she learns my manners and my behaviors, and which will differ from your questions, are there any personalized entities called bots that, or because these examples seem to me that tend to be generalized mechanisms to serve everyone.
I don't know of any personalised ones yet, but I mean they will come definitely, and you will have personal bots. My only problem with that is the whole kind of filter bubble issue. That we're already wrapped up in our own kind of advertising world and our own engagement world. Will we end up with our own kind of thing? One of the wonders of the Christian churches is that it brings you into contact with people who are completely outside your comfort zone. Yeah, and indeed the Holy Spirit comes in and blows off your feet. Yeah, and I don't think I want to create my own personal Jesus, who's a bot. Yeah, I'm much more happy with a Jesus who comes and confronts me and says, Pete, how's your prayer life going? How are you walking with me and so on? And can a robot replace Jesus in that way? I don't know.
I don't know either.
Thank you for a very interesting session. I wonder if we as churches have chatbots that was very good to answer when is my closing sermon this weekend, and then they answer the address and the time, and then say why should I believe in Jesus, and then they say you can log on netchurch.com and chat with the priest. If we could make some algorithms that they know when to talk with church members and when to just get that. Because I think as a church we can use it for practical reasons, but not for theological answers. And if we could make that a safe, with safe algorithms. Because some weeks ago we got a question at the Instagram in Church of Norway. Hey, is self-harm a sin? And I can't possibly answer that, so I have to say, thank you for your question. You can talk to a priest here, and then the teenager chatted with a priest. And it would be very dangerous if the chatbots got those questions like, hey, is self-harm a sin from a teenager? And the chatbots start to joke about it or mirroring it like it was...
I think these questions of Tally Proud, it'd be good to ask Tally that question on Wednesday, because the Church of CODEC Labs has set up this new church bot that they're developing and so on. And that's one of my worries about it, because humans. But go back to the whole thing about always have a human chat handoff. You've got to think through what kind of point do the humans need to come into this conversation. Yeah, but I think that idea of having a station in the church to explore what's happening in the church and so on. When I was at Turku last year, they've got this kind of thing that you go around an animated version of the church where it retells the history of the church and so on. But it tells you more about the rites and what happens there and how prayer works and everything. And there's a really, really good resource that people could go in and explore the history of the place using a bot interface or using kind of an automated interface. So use automated for what it's good for, and allow humans to be humans,
We have, as you said, a practical use of it. Young adult group in Tampere, there's a chatbot in Facebook Messenger. You can choose listen or read, join the mess. It gives you a timetable of messages or give feedback, and then there is listen to sermons or read blog or go to the website, and that's quite nice, and it's practical, and then you go to the mass and have a conversation and face-to-face interaction.
And there's the Jubilee app that was developed.
It's kind of very similar kind, and they have made the mobile pay in the mass for the charity.
Right.
In the same way.
The back.
Yeah, it's a question maybe linked to what Miriam said there. Because in the Church of Norway, we are being kind of accused of being too distant from people.
Yes.
And I'm just wondering if there, I mean, I don't know, maybe this is too new in a way, but do we have any experience from churches who have used this for a while to actually, how do people react to it? Do they find that it's actually too distant or not serious enough, or do we know anything about that? Or
it's too new, but there are signs that So though Gartner said everyone will be making these conversations, chatbots are hated. Yeah, people tend to avoid them, especially if they're on call centres and so on. They want to speak to a human being.
But I mean, being to a church.
Yeah,
that's
so
something else, I think.
yeah, so the only relationship we've got, or the research. Have you got some research or?
No, but kind of related comment.
Yeah.
But please finish your sentence.
Sorry, digital millennials tend to like interhuman conversation and interhuman interaction. Despite what's been happening about phones and the use of text and everything there. And we did some research at CODEC recently where we showed them some automated pictures and messages together. And they were pretty horrified by the automated nature of that. They could see through the fact that there wasn't a human behind it. So that's interesting. And Barna have brought out a whole load of a huge, what do you make of digital millennials? Which seems to suggest their preference for cathedral-based worship, their preference for rites, their preference for a personal approach to worship, would seem to suggest that they wouldn't jump at chatbots. But that's all. We don't have the hard science for that at the moment. There's one here and one there. Sorry.
I just wanted to add to that one that it probably depends on where you come from, because I've been contemplating for the podcast of churches pages we haven't activated the message function, because I know I wouldn't be able to answer all the messages in a reasonably timely way. But possibly with the help of a chatbot, it could become just manageable enough, or at least it would allow for coming early in the conversation with an apology that this might not quite meet your expectations in terms of how fast you get a response, and here's the reasons, here's what your options are. So it might be an improvement from what people would probably not see as a satisfying situation.
So again, flip the thing about let humans be humans and bots be bots. Bots are really good at getting hold of data. So you could put in a kind of pre-bot which says, what's your name, what organisation you're phoning from, what's your address, could you give us your address, blah blah, data protection, all that issues. So you can kind of get that over with so that you're not leaving that for the human to have to make all those steps as well as give their conversation. Yeah? So if we could allow the bots to do the simplistic stuff, it's automated before it gets to you, you can then ask the question that's really the important at the nub of where it is. The question is, do you need to have enough conversation before the teenager will ask whether self-harm is a sin? Yeah? And does the asking for their name and address and telephone number and blah, blah, blah give you the lead-in that they can then ask the big question? Whereas, will the bot-human handoff mean you've got to go through another load of interactions before they'll ask that big question? And we just don't know. But yeah, let bots be bots. Let them do the general triage stuff, because there is triage that does need to be done. Sorry.
Perhaps a special German question, but in my country there's a great fear about using bots because of this seen danger that some bots can behave like human beings, can do conversation like you do with the children.
Yeah.
As an example. And for me, it's in the church have a fight. They don't want to use it and want to spend money in the development because of the fear that something can happen.
Yeah.
On the other side, you have a big problem in conversation and how fast we answer to questions in real life.
Yeah.
And these both ways are corresponding, and yeah, this is.
Yeah, I think there's huge problems with that. There's a lot of public resistance to what's going on, and I think that's only made worse where Facebook misuses data. So in the recent conversation about Cambridge Analytica, I asked Facebook to show me all the data they held on me, because you can download all your data. And I was horrified that all the message conversations that I had were included in the data they were using. Now, I've had really personal conversations with people about self-harm or about suicide or about stuff like that, you know, that I thought the whole point was having them in Messenger as a pastor. They were private conversations.
Okay.
But they're not. Facebook all the time was recording them. Okay, so we do have to be very careful. The Cambridge Analytica thing about creaming off that data and the guy in Oxford, not why we came, pulling the information down and so on, is only the tip of the iceberg about what's going on about data. So you've got to be careful.
Yeah. We in Germany we have a contact between the Evangelical Church of Germany and Facebook,
right?
And they have. They think about to produce this model that if they detect somebody thinking about suicide, to offer them help. And they ask us if we are the ones to give that contact. This could be a good idea for the church. In these cases,
they launched in the UK about 12 months ago, and it lasted for about 3 weeks because it was an invasion of privacy, because the person who was writing the messages did not give permission for them to be analysed in that way and to analyse their mental health. It could therefore be deemed to be discriminatory against somebody with mental health issues. And certainly personal. The bigger question behind it is Facebook needs to be using its data in order to allow people to engage with their community services better. So it should be profiling the churches and what the churches can do about counselling and mental health and issues like that. Yeah. It should be profiling what the National Health Service in the UK or health service all over can do, the Diaconia and so on can do. And it's not doing that. It's milking people for data. It's farming them for data. Yeah? It's not a proper social community. And I think that's my reservations about what it's doing. You know, Facebook can tell when you're going to break up from your partner. You know, it has the algorithm which shows how your communications change when you're near a cut-off point. You know, somebody only reminded me on the way, David reminded me earlier on, about how it sent somebody a congratulations for your pregnancy and some adverts for some, you know, pregnancy materials and everything, much to the surprise to the rest of the family, because the girl hadn't told anybody. You know, now imagine that. You know about the implications of using data in that way. And Facebook has to have some responsibility for what it's doing with our data. Should we finish that?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm aware dinner's coming soon. So.
Great, so thank you, Pete, for starting off the conference. He's given us so much to think about, and this is just a little token of thanks. But,
thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Staying around for a couple of days, so you can keep asking him questions, if that's okay.
Yes.
So dinner is at 7, which is in the dining hall below us, downstairs. I think we're kind of having free time until then. So have a good free time.